What does Pac-Man have to do with writing a book? All right, everybody, welcome back for another deep dive.
Yeah, excited for this one.
So today, we're tackling something that I think a lot of people dream about doing, but honestly kind of get intimidated by.
For sure.
We're talking about writing a book.
Yeah, the whole shebang.
The whole thing.
The whole process.
The whole process. And we're looking specifically at this article by Carma Spence. And
oh, yeah, I love this article.
yeah. And it's really cool because she kind of flips the script on how we think about writing.
You know, it's funny because most people think of writing a book as this, grueling marathon, right?
Yeah, it's a slog.
Yeah, you gotta power through it, just white knuckle it to the end.
Suffer through it.
Exactly. And she's like, what if it wasn't like that?
What if it was actually fun?
Yeah, what if we could make it fun?
And she uses this really cool analogy to Pac-Man.
Yes, the classic arcade game.
Which when I first saw it, I was like, what?
Wow, right?
What is going on here? What does Pac-Man have to do with writing a book? But
it's so brilliant.
it really is.
It really is, because think about it for a second. You know, when you're playing Pac-Man, you're moving through this maze.
You're gobbling up those little dots.
And you're gobbling up the dots. You're avoiding the ghosts.
You're racking up points.
There's this constant sense of progress and achievement. And Spence's point is why can't writing be like that?
Yeah, why can't it have that same kind of addictive quality?
Right. And it's interesting because she talks about how our brains are actually wired to respond to these kinds of game mechanics, you know?
Yeah, the challenges, the rewards.
Exactly, like those dopamine hits that we get when we level up or achieve a goal. That's what keeps us coming back for more.
So how do we actually apply that to writing, though? Do we need to start visualizing our words as little Pac-Man dots or something?
Not exactly, although that would be kind of fun.
I mean, it's a visual, I guess.
But no, Spence lays out some really practical tips that we can actually use in our everyday writing lives.
Okay, I like practical.
Right, so first of all, she talks about breaking down the writing process into these smaller mini quests, you know?
So it's not so overwhelming.
Right. Exactly, because instead of thinking about, oh my gosh, I have to write this entire 300-page manuscript.
Just thinking about one chapter.
You can focus on just, okay, what's my goal for today? Maybe it's to write 1,000 words. Maybe it's to finish this particular section. And when you approach it that way, it just feels way more manageable.
That makes a lot of sense. And I think that's something that, we hear a lot in productivity circles too, right?
Oh, absolutely.
It's that whole idea of breaking things down into smaller chunks so it doesn't feel so scary.
Right. And another thing that Spence talks about that I think is really important is celebrating those wins. No matter how small.
Yeah, this is a big one for me.
Yeah, give yourself permission to acknowledge and celebrate those little victories, because those little dopamine hits are what's going to keep you motivated.
Totally. And it doesn't have to be anything crazy,
Right.
Spence gives some examples go for a walk.
Grab a cup of coffee.
Read a chapter in a book that you've been wanting to read. Just anything that feels good and that you can associate with hitting those writing milestones.
Exactly. And it's you're training your brain to think of writing as a positive experience.
Yeah, so it's not this horrible chore that you're dreading.
Right. And speaking of things we tend to dread, Spence also has a really interesting perspective on deadlines.
Oh, deadlines are the worst.
I know, but she suggests that we try to reframe them as challenges instead of threats.
So instead of seeing it as this looming doom.
Yeah, this big scary monster that's going to eat you if you don't finish on time.
You see it as okay, I've got this deadline.
It's a challenge. It's a game.
I'm going to beat it.
Yeah, it's like that race against the clock in a video game. It can actually be kind of exhilarating.
I'm going to try that next time I have a deadline. I'm going to try to think of it as a challenge.
I think it'll make a big difference.
Okay, I'm going to try it. I'm going to report back.
Please do.
Okay, and then the last tip that Spence really emphasizes is tracking your progress.
Oh, yeah, this is huge.
Because it's so easy to get lost in the day-to-day grind and forget how far you've come. When you actually take the time to visually see your accomplishments.
Mark them off on a checklist.
Yeah, or, color in a progress bar.
Have a writing journal where you log your word count.
It's like leveling up in a game.
It really is.
It's so motivating.
It gives you that sense of momentum, and it reminds you that you're actually making progress even when it doesn't feel like it.
And I think that's something that's really important for any kind of creative project. Not just writing.
Oh, absolutely.
Because it's so easy to get discouraged when you're in the middle of it.
Yeah, you can't see the forest for the trees.
Exactly. But if you can step back and see how far you've come, it can really help you stay on track.
And you know what's really cool is that Spence actually gives us a little challenge at the end of the
Oh,
article.
challenge. I love a good challenge.
Yeah, she asks us to identify one specific aspect of our writing process that feels particularly challenging.
Like that thing that we always procrastinate on.
Yeah, the thing that we dread the most. And then she's like, turn it into a mini game.
So, like, find that pain point.
Gamify it.
I like that.
So give it its own set of rules and rewards.
So it becomes fun instead of a chore.
Exactly.
I think that's a brilliant idea.
It's so simple, but it's so powerful, and it really gets at the heart of what Spence is trying to teach us, which is that we can actually change how we feel about writing by tapping into our natural desire for challenge and reward.
And I think that's something that we can apply to so many areas of our lives.
Absolutely.
Not just writing.
It's like anything that feels difficult or tedious or boring.
Like doing taxes or cleaning the bathroom.
Exactly. Like if we can find a way to gamify those things, imagine how much more enjoyable life would be.
That's so true. And I think that's something that we're going to be exploring a lot more in the show.
I'm excited for that.
How can we use gamification to make those things that we dread a little bit more fun?
Because life is too short to be bored.
Exactly.
So let's make it a game.
Yes. And if you're interested in learning more about Spence's work, she does offer consultations. You can find information on her website.
And even if you don't go that route, I think just taking these core principles that we talked about today and applying them to your own life can make a huge difference.
Totally. So what are you going to gamify today?
What are you going to gamify?
We'll see you next time for another deep dive.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye.